Danny, I guess the big question is, how did it come to this? How did it come to the point where the rebels had to flee out here in this remote place atop Masada? Give us a backdrop of what was going on between the years 66 and roughly AD 70, the Roman-Jewish wars as they're known.
Yes, it's a very sad and tragic story indeed. Around the 50s of the first century, the temple in Jerusalem is finally complete, standing in full glory.
Herod's temple, as it's been known.
Completed by his grandson. He does some work around it. And 15 years later, on the spring of year 66, the Jews decide to make a critical decision and not pay the taxes, not give the daily sacrifice to the Roman emperor. Okay? Big mistake, as I said in the movie Pretty Woman. Okay? Don't mess with the Romans. Definitely not in the first century. But they didn't ask my advice. And the consequences were horrific. The Romans did not endure this attitude, and 4 legions were sent here by the veteran general Vespasian and his son Titus, and they just crushed the Jewish resistance, starting at the Battle of Yodfat and moving on to Tiberias and Migdal.
So in the Galilee region.
First the Galilee was crushed, and then the 4 legions moved, the 10th legion along the Jordan Valley, the others through the coast, and they all met on Mount Scopus, where he could scope.
Outside Jerusalem, of course.
At this stage, by the way, Vespasian goes back to Rome and crowns himself, and Titus, his son, completes the job.
Titus. Now Vespasian becomes emperor, and he sends Titus here to finish the job. And so this starts in roughly AD 66, Danny. Fast forward to AD 70, where it sadly culminates with the destruction of the Second Temple.
Yes, Titus, the son, is now the commander, and Josephus describes in very great graphic, bloody detail of how they take wall by wall, and people they catch, they just crucify them against the walls as a psychological war. They ran out of wood at some point because so many people were put to death in this terrible way. And on the 9th day in the month of Av by Jewish calendar, the temple itself catches fire. The
same day, the 9th of Av, famous date in Jewish history, the Babylonians destroyed the first temple.
Yes.
Danny, hellish conditions. When you read Josephus, an extra biblical account, which gives us some amazing insights into that period, when you read Josephus, even before the Romans really breached the walls, there was kind of a civil war going on inside the old city of Jerusalem between the various Jewish factions. Tell us about that, because that's where the rebels emerged from.
Yes, and that's part of why it's such a tragedy. Jerusalem was actually burning from within even before the Romans arrived. Okay, Jerusalem was in a in a boiling pot of different orders that were hating one another. You had the Sadducees, you had the priests, you had the Pharisees, and you had the Sicaries, which were the most fanatics. And it was the Sicaries, by the way, who at least led the group up here on Masada. They were following an attitude that we should not subdue to Roman power, and anyone else who does is our enemy as well.
Danny, fascinating stuff. There was slaughter, as we said, when the Romans finally were able to conquer Jerusalem. They spared no quarter, women, children. And it would have been a similar situation here at Masada, but then things took an interesting turn, which we're going to talk about next.
Up next, the rebels make a fateful decision that cements Masada's place in history. You won't want to miss the shocking outcome of the Roman siege. Don't move.